Well, hello and welcome yet again. Today we're taking a look at another cantilever quick release mount, this time by the manufacturer BOBRO. Now I've seen these for quite some time, and when I found the opportunity to get my hands on not just one, but two of them, I said, why the hell not? These things come in at around $250 for 30mm version. I think for 34 and 35mm they go up about 15 bucks a piece, but I was very intrigued by the single quick release lever that they have on this. Both of these feature the exact same sort of quick release, with a couple of key differences in between. We're going to talk about this one first because this is the first one that I have in my hands. Like all of my mounting reviews, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. I'm going to go back and forth between the two of them so we can see what's going on. So right off the bat, you can see that there are two button cap screws right here at the bottom. And there's this little nicely threaded hole right here. There is a steel thread insert in there, so this way you don't have to worry about stripping out the aluminum threads inside the top piece of the mount. So if in theory, we should be able to remove these, slide this back, and reset it to go from a cantilever mount to a regular fixed mount. Really, really nice feature. One that I haven't really seen on any other mounts. The one thing with the BOBRO mount that you can very clearly also see is that there's only one claw right here locking it into the pick rail. I'm really interested in seeing if this is going to hold up well, as opposed to something like, I don't know, an ADM mount, which has these two gigantic claws that lock in on the pick rail with these really nice, big, beefy cam locks. The ADM is probably the best, I'd say, overall mount that I've reviewed so far as price, quality, and performance, re-zeroing. But we're going to see if the BOBRO can at least match that. So we have two nice positive locks here for the pick rail, so you don't have to worry about it moving forward and backwards. The standing side, you can see we have these two nice, about an inch wide or so, claws that are going to be locking positively on there. And as far as the lock itself, or the QD mount, you have a lock right here, which you disengage by pressing down. And then, watch your fingers on this, you push this up, and he comes up. I say watch your fingers because there's a massive amount of pressure on this from these two springs on the inside. It's a little hard to see, but they are two quite large springs which put positive pressure on this claw. So you disengage and lift up. Once it's up, as you can see, it sits flush in there. So it will very easily hook in and slide on top of your pick rail. You close it down and you have it pop out. I have to say, it feels fantastic. And even though this is a slightly used mount, it has very little wear and tear on it. This is serviceable if you wanted to pull this apart, but guess what I'm not going to be doing? Pulling that apart, because you should never really have to remove it. But if you do, you have two, I believe, T25 Torx head screws right there, and this entire piece comes right off. You can buy replacement parts for these, which is really nice. This way, if something does break, you can easily replace it. Looking at the top half, you can see we have these two nice big caps with just 4 screws on each. Nothing really stands out about being special or unique, at least on this mount. Transversing onto this mount, you can see, again, we have very similar aspects on the bottom, except we do not have the extra screw hole over here. So this one's always going to be set up for a cantilever mount. However, as you can see, there are still 2 Torx screws here that can be at least removed and swapped out with different bases. You have the exact same style lock, and again, you can see those 2 springs right there. Depress, flick up, and this one has a little more gusto in it because this one's slightly newer than that one, or at least that one. It is a massive amount of spring pressure on there, but it works really well. We're going to put this thing on a rail soon so you can see what I'm talking about. These caps, however, as you can see, have a slightly unique feature to them. They lock in on the sides. This way you know exactly where they are, and you're going to line them up properly. Now, they are symmetrical, so you could turn these and rotate them front to back however you want. It's a really nice feature that you at least know that you're getting them really close to one another. Not only that, but I think they look fantastic. The overall cap design is different as well as the base. As you can see, there are 2 hex head screws on each cap, so you can remove them and replace them with larger caps. These are set up for 30mm, as you can see right there. The overall fit and finish on these things is stellar. There is no issues to see. There is no issues to talk about. There's no sharp edges. Everything's been properly deburred. The anodizing is fantastic. Both of these were purchased used, so these were not brand new. And as you can see, they're either very well cared for, or the fit and finish on this thing is just that durable. As far as the nail test, you can see the anodizing does take a little bit of the nail off, but you wipe it down and it becomes basically invisible. A little bit of cleaning on that should come right off. So as far as mounting it onto a rail, you have the two standing claws right here, which you hook in and then wiggle it back and forth until you get those two positive locks inside the pick rail, and then you close it up. Those two big springs put a lot of positive pressure on this, and once it's there, it's not going anywhere. Again, when you release this, be very careful not to have your finger, like this, be in the way, because that really actually hurts. There'll probably be a bruise there later. Both these mounts lock up identically, except this one does have a little bit more of a precision size to it. It makes getting on a little bit more tricky, but once it's on, it is on. The lock does protrude off the side by a fair margin, however, and that is something that you have to keep in mind. I am at least thankful that they put it on the left-hand side as opposed to the right-hand side. Me being a right-hander, if I put this on one of my bolt guns like I have been doing, at least the bolt will clear the mount. If this was the other way around, however, you have to worry about this not only getting in the way of like a bolt action, but also your port ejection on your, let's say, AR-15. Brass might hit this, and it's not what you really want. Now, as far as weight goes, we know the ADM mount's a little bit over 8 ounces. Comes in around 200 bucks. This version comes in nearly a full ounce lighter. This one is a touch heavier, but not by much. I don't have an ADM mount available, but how about a LaRue mount? I've been told to get my hands on one of these because I'm going to absolutely love it. It's going to be the best mount ever. And I will say, this thing feels featherweight by comparison. This video is going to be coming out soon. I have to do a little bit more testing on it, but this so far is a pretty nice mount, but it's got its quirks. So price-wise, these come in fairly competitive into the market, around 250 bucks, give or take. You can find these used for around 200 or even less, which is where I found both of these. And for that, so far, they're seeming to be a pretty good value for money. They offer really nice features. I really like the lock, and they're both fairly lightweight. They're also configurable, both of these are. So you can mix and match however you so choose, which in my line of work is fantastic. Do I plan on replacing all of my ADMs with these though? Hardly. I have somewhere in the order of 6 or 7 ADM recon mounts, all of which varying from 30, 34, or 35 millimeter clamshells. There's no sense in me changing it now. Now yes, the QD lock is protruding quite a ways off the side of this mount, but compared to an ADM mount, we can get this pretty close on the right. As you can see, it actually doesn't protrude that much farther, probably about 3/32 of an inch. Not what I would consider a deal breaker. So far these mounts are shaping up to be really, really nice, but let's see how well they return to zero, shall we? All right, here we are with the BOBRO mount. I can only effectively use one of these because the other one is getting jammed up on the rail and does not lock up with the particular pick rail that I have on this because there's a groove cut in the middle. So I'll showcase that on the table, but for right now, Miata Optica 6, 3 to 18, we're here at 18X. I'm going to disengage it. It's perfectly lined up currently. I'm going to remove it and put it back. Put a little forward pressure on it and lock it into place. It looks like it's just favoring the left-hand side. We're going to do that again. Disengage, remove it, put it back in place, push forward, lock it up. It looks like it's pretty consistent there. Let's do it again. Off, down, forward, lock in place. It looks pretty consistent. One more time for good luck. Forward, lock in place, and it looks very, very good. So despite the fact this only has one claw on it and minimal interaction with the rail, I think it passes with flying colors. So this is a little snippet that I just want to throw together real quick. This is the BOBRO mount, which I just did the re-zeroing test on, and it was giving me a problem. I've never had this experience before, but as you can see, it's marred up here on the bottom because I had to try to pry this off with the screwdriver, and it wasn't coming undone. I ended up finding out that I was able to slide this off the front of my rail, and that was the only way to release this, because for whatever reason, if we were to disengage this, you could see how this claw resets back, which is what it should do, but on the rail, it won't, or at least it wasn't. All right, so the 2 screws off the side reveals this. You have the big plate here. The 2, actually, you could see there's actually 4 big springs in there. And then the claw, which you could see, maybe if it focuses, right there, there's a bit of a mark. So I think that is what was getting caught. I'm going to just hit that with a little bit of a stone and try to keep it as flat as possible, because if I were to file this to one side or the other, it won't make perfect contact, and then you're going to have problems. And in case any of you are wondering what these things look like with a scope mounted to them, here you have it. These two are actually currently going head to head, so I'm not going to remove these from these mounts because I don't have any other mounts available currently. Now, as you already saw, this is the mount that gave me a problem. However, I was able to fix it. It's a little hard to see in there. I had some Arkansas hardstone and I took it to the front edge, and it seemed to clean it up. There was a burr on, I believe it was right here, all the way at the front, which must have been getting locked up and preventing it from releasing back. Unfortunately, that is what happens when you buy things used. You don't really know what you're getting until you get it. It was an oversight on my end, not the mounts. The mount performs flawlessly as it is intended, and I cleaned it up and it works perfectly fine now. There are these 3 marks here at the bottom, but I stoned them down. You can't feel them, you can only see them. But this doesn't interfere with the rail itself. But like I already said, this is an outdated model, so I'm going to put this over to the side, and we're going to focus on this one for the remainder of the video. So again, as you already saw, these things return to 0 very well. But I can't help but feel that one little claw that wide is not enough for any sort of mounting purpose. It seems like it resets perfectly fine, but what would happen if you really put this thing through the ringer and like smash it against a wall or dropped it on the ground or threw it out of a car? I really don't know to what extent it will be okay. It seems okay in testing, but going out there in the field and really using it, I would not feel the most confident with something like this. Pick up any other sort of quality mount. Even the LaRue mount, like you see here, has 2 locking areas that are roughly the same width as that. Pick up a Midwest Industries mount, and you can see you have these 2 gigantic claws right outside the locking tee that really lock on there and aren't going to let go. And a nice thing about this, you can adjust the tension on this to go from mild to wild and everything in between. That's actually one of the things I didn't care about the LaRue. There's no adjustability to it. And guess what? There's no adjustability to this. The only thing you have, as you saw earlier, are those 4 gigantic springs inside there that come compressed on a cantilever on this arm. So when you close this, you're sweeping that across and putting pressure going down. It's a beefy system, and you can buy these with double mounts, but I think the single mount is not good enough for my psyche to be like, all right, this is going to be perfectly fine through thick and thin. I'm sure it is fine, but for me, I'd rather have something that I know is going to be more secure. So what do I think about the BOBRO mounts with 2 locking claws like this instead of the 1? Definitely a better option. At that point, though, I think it would just look a little bit too big and bulky. But again, that's all a matter of personal preference. But that's basically it. Even if this had 2 claws on it, I'd still feel iffy because there's no adjustability on this claw. Again, a la Midwest Industries or ADM. Do I think that they look good? They look fantastic. They're made to a very high standard, and they feel really, really good. Is it for me? No, but it might be for you. So if it is, buy these with confidence because they are extremely, extremely nicely machined, made, anodized mounts. They really are fantastic. But I can't help but think that the single locking lever might not be enough for at least me to be comfortable with it. And at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable in your gear, then what's the point? Thank you very much for watching. See you again next time. And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.